Hello, this is Court Watch with Alex Swoyer, and I'm excited to bring you the latest episode of my podcast, where I am joined by Ilya Shapiro, Director of Constitutional Studies at the Manhattan Institute. He'll discuss the Supreme Court's latest major disputes and two big ones that are coming up in January. Hey, Ilya, thank you so much for taking time to break down some of the biggest cases so far since October. There's three that I specifically wanted to ask you about before picking your brain about next month's cases. And the first one is the major dispute over the Voting Rights Act, Section 2 out of Louisiana. And that one, to refresh my listeners' memories on this, since it's been a minute since I've talked about it, it is the one where you had basically non-Black voters challenged the congressional map that had carved out, I guess, two minority districts, correct? And they're basically saying this is discriminatory, it's a violation of equal protection. To use race, I guess, to draw district lines. Am I dumbing it down too much, or can you tell me a little bit about what you thought of the court's arguments and how that hearing went?
Yeah, this is Louisiana versus Calais, and it's the suit if you do, suit if you don't situation, or trying to implement the court's Goldilocks jurisprudence with regards to using race in drawing districts. You have to use race somewhat to allow racial minorities the opportunity to, quote, elect a candidate of their choice. But if you start using it too much, then that's a problem constitutionally. And it looks like what the court is going to do is throw up its hands and say, look, unless some blatant smoking gun of racial discrimination, we're not going to be policing this sort of thing. Politicians draw lines for political reasons. And that dovetails with the more recent saga over the Texas redistricting, where the court just recently, I think it was last week, blocked the lower court that itself had blocked Texas's new midterm redistricting. If the Louisiana case is decided as we expect, then that will prevent future such litigation, as we just saw over the Texas new districting, the midterm districting, where the lower court had blocked it for violating the Voting Rights Act. Such claims will no longer be cognizable in court. So it'll straighten things out. Politicians can keep acting as politicians unless they're being blatantly racist.
Right. I mean, obviously, redistricting fights seem to be like the new front line at the states, California, Maryland, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to follow that. Lastly, or I guess not lastly, I need two more of your thoughts before we get to January. I'm just too excited about January. The Trump tariff case, that was argued, and the president, and I know his administration is very eager for a ruling on that. Do you think it'll come soon, or like what was your take? I know usually we say the big ones are saved for the end of the term that are released, but like here it's a kind of a special circumstance.
Well, clearly they don't see it as the utmost emergency, like say Bush v. Gore, or a couple of other cases on the emergency docket in recent years where they do really accelerate things. The TikTok case that was decided, I think, 8 or 9 days after argument. So clearly we're past that. But yeah, I agree. It's not going to last until the end of term. It could, and this dovetails into the next case that you want to talk about, be released around the same time as Trump v. Slaughter, because that case about the removal of agency heads is likely to go the president's way in favor of the president being able to control all of the executive branch. You can't have these free-floating agencies that are independent of political accountability, while at the same time giving the president a loss on the tariff, which the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, has already said they're looking at workarounds and imposing most of what they've done through this international economic emergency statute that had never been done before. They're looking at doing it a different way. So,
okay, so they're already coming up with like a plan B, you think?
I think so. So. And that's why, John Roberts is likely to write both of these opinions, and he's likely to, he likes doing these things where it's a win and a loss on the same day. Okay,
so I'm going to ask you on the just recently they heard the first, I guess, firing case, right, where Trump fired Rebecca Slaughter at the Federal Trade Commission. Last time I talked to you, I think when we previewed like this term, we were talking a little bit about how this is a big case because there's precedent, I guess like 90-year-old precedent that had said, that the president doesn't have the ability or authority to fire like these people at these independent agencies. That's kind of been, I guess, chipped away over the years, but like it kind of sounds like the justices are I got the feeling that, their Humphrey's executor, that's the case I'm referring to, is gone, that 90-year-old precedent. I don't know what your take was. And if so, how does that impact I know in January you were going to talk about a couple of big cases, and one of those is the firing of Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve. Do these overlap, or can you explain to the listeners how they do not, if they don't?
So the court has been chipping away in the last 15 years at the complete independence or lack of political accountability of these agencies, and giving not just Trump, but any future president the power to appoint and remove as he sees fit. I think that makes sense given the growth of the administrative state, effectively a fourth branch of government, which was not the case when Humphrey's executor came down in 1935. The FTC then, the court said, was a quasi-legislative, quasi-judicial body, not fully executive. I think now it's a policy-making body, no more or less than a cabinet department, and so the president should be able to control it, and that's what they're going to say. The Lisa Cook example, or the Fed more broadly, I think is going to be different. And Trump is pursuing the removal of Cook, not just because he's for any reason or good reason, what have you. He's saying that there's malfeasance there. He's saying there's fraud in how she filled out her mortgage applications, and so it's not just an at-will sort of situation. And the court, when it rules in the Slaughter case and the FTC case, that will have broad applicability over the alphabet agencies, so-called. I think they'll have a carve-out for the Fed as well as for Article I courts, be that for the armed forces, specialized tax courts, or other bodies that really are exercising something other than executive power.
Mm-hmm. In January also, aside from Lisa Cook, there's a couple cases I think you might highlight for me dealing with the transgender issue, specifically sports, right? Girls' sports. Can you break those down for us?
Yeah, one case out of Idaho, one case out of West Virginia, one case involving high school sports, another one involving college, one that was decided on the constitutional ground, 14th Amendment equal protection, one that was decided based on Title IX, the federal statute guaranteeing equal access. But regardless, they all present the same sorts of issues with state bans on biological males competing in girls' or women's sports. I think the Supreme Court will uphold such state legislation, saying that it's not discriminatory in some way, doesn't deny equal protection, that there's a very valid reason that states have in the interest of fairness, in the interest of equality for women, to have these sorts of restrictions. And Bostock always is raised in these sorts of questions. That's the case that read in employment protections based on gender identity and sexual orientation. But this is a different scenario, as the author of Bostock, Justice Gorsuch, has repeatedly said that is limited to Title VII and employment, and this is a different case. That's
true, but it was, I think, Alito's dissent that argued or warned that ruling could lead to, I guess, some of these other issues that are now the court's having to take up, right? So maybe there'll be some more clarity in that, I guess you could say, line of case law.
Well, there'll be a reinforcement that Gorsuch is a super textualist, and he said that the wording of Title VII is different than the wording of whether it's Title IX or Title VI came up in terms of educational funding, that it comes up in different ways. And so just as in Scrimeti last term, the case about a state ban on funding gender transition surgeries and other medical treatments for minors, this is yet again something where Bostock is simply not in play, according to the Gorsuch and I think Roberts reading.
Yes, interesting. I feel like I get the most questions over the transgender cases lately. It just seems to be where the society, I guess, is most curious. But
there's also a Second Amendment case in January to look for out of Hawaii.
Yeah, flag me.
Just Hawaii has a rule saying that even if you're lawfully permitted to carry a firearm, you have to have the property owner's explicit permission to do so, whether that's a business or a home or any other place. Now, all over the country, property owners do have the right to exclude people if they don't want guns on their property. But the question is, what is the default rule? It's going to be interesting in terms of the Bruin analysis of text structure and history.
Yes, that is one to watch. Yeah. Thank you. I think there's been a lot of follow-ups to Bruin too. It's always, I enjoy seeing kind of where that goes. I appreciate your time and happy holidays. We'll talk soon. Thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of Court Watch. If you have not subscribed yet to this podcast, please do so, and also feel free to email me interesting questions or topics that you want explored about the legal reporting world. I'll do my best to answer them during each episode. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you all soon. Listen to my podcast, Court Watch, at WashingtonTimes.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.